Fan Network, it is Holly and I'm joined by David Blackmore, founder of Blown Bubbles magazine. David, thank you so much for joining us today. How is everything going?
Yeah, good. You know, our November issue has just come out, and we're starting to working towards our December issue now, which is going to have something very special on the front cover, which is going to be that we are shortlisted for Fanzine of the Year in the FSA Awards. We didn't quite get the good news of the shortlist before the November issue went out, because I always like to sort of stick that on, because it's always good to show off the wonderful work that we have been doing.
100%, and December's an exciting time of year anyway, so it sounds like the perfect time to be celebrating that. And so what we're going to be chatting about today is everything that goes into creating fun, amazing, interesting content that has such a range of topics for West Ham fans. And I know that this is something you've done obviously so well for 11 years now. So before we begin, sort of for anyone that isn't aware of Blown Bubbles, talk us through who you are, how it began, and what was the motivation behind launching Blown Bubbles?
So I used to write for Overland and Sea back in the day, and I used to love doing it. I mean, I always found that Gary, the editor owner, he had his favourites that would go in a certain position in the publication. And so I was always kind of, towards the back of the book as a young writer, even though I'd have like the most valid points going, I'd always be towards the back. And actually, what I found when I was reading that and other fanzines as well, I'm not just bashing Overland and Seas, that you just found you go page after page after page, and it'd be the same people's opinion, the same view on the same topic, page after page. And I was like, surely there must be a different way of going this, because they still would have different sections on there, which I would look forward to reading, because it was different content in there. So I decided that I would like to launch a fanzine at the time in my career, because I'm a journalist. At the time I was a senior newspaper reporter. I was looking to make that step to becoming kind of a news editor, or someone that has a bit more say into what goes into a publication. And so I sort of just did some research, and at that time, it was at the time when people were going mad for, they'd have an iPad, and they would have the latest issue of a magazine, and you'd read it like you were reading a normal, publication. You could just flick through the pages, and it seemed to be that digital magazines were going to almost be the way to go. And I kind of, perhaps, some ways I think it perhaps was a mistake, but in other ways it probably helped. But so in August 2012. We played Aston Villa at home, and I decided that was going to be the game that we were launched. When we did launch, my plan at that time was to do an issue for every home game. So you could get, by and large, you'd hope that you'd get one every 2 weeks. But you know what it's like, especially when you get towards Christmas, or suddenly you get like two games in a week. It just became really, we just couldn't manage it really. I think we did it for 2 seasons. So the first 2 seasons it was 38 odd issues or something like that. It was a huge amount. But back then when we started, that was the aim. First issue came out, I got like 10,000 printed, because I wanted to make it a bit of a marketing thing. You get people handing up leaflets, but I thought, well, people aren't going to necessarily be, they want a hard copy of it. They don't want a leaflet to say this is what you can download. So I did that, and of course off the back of that I had a lot of people say, oh, this is great, where can I order more hard copies? I'm thinking, no, this isn't really what I had envisaged. So yeah, at that time, Overland and Sea were very much obviously still the main draw, and when it came to sort of West Ham fans and getting their fanzine fix. But obviously when we moved to the Olympic Stadium, that's when Overland and Sea kind of stopped, and then we kind of stepped in to fill the voids. And well, I can probably talk loads on the trials and tribulations of actually trying to sell a fanzine outside the stadium, because what I've realised is it really does matter on the weather, the time of the game, and loads of things that go into it, and it can be really difficult. But for us at the moment, we've gone from me having this idea of having a digital only publication to suddenly 11 years on, we've just done our 140th issue, and we have people that read our publication all around the world. They get like a digital PDF every month, which are absolutely delighted with. And then we have a lot of people, mainly in the UK, that get a hard copy through the post every month. We try and do it at the start of each month, unless, like with Prague, we actually delayed our summer issue printing until after the game, because I didn't want to go to print building up to it and then the next week us win, because that's the other thing with fanzines, is that you want it to have a shelf life for at least kind of 3 weeks. And sometimes what happens on a that as you're going to print, we normally got that weekend game that can completely set the tone of what that month's issue is going to be. But then you go on to, and I think the classic example of that was the Arsenal game recently. We had the issue ready to go to the printers, and I thought, I'm just going to hold off sending it just until we see it, because a lot of the issue in that content was negative. We lost to Everton, lost to Olympiacos, but then we go and do that against Arsenal, and suddenly I think because it was around Halloween, I think the front cover was going to be horror show or trick or defeat, or I was trying to think of anything kind of Halloweeny. And actually we had to completely change. To be honest, we just changed the front cover because and we changed it to Up for the Cup, which again, with hindsight, had I seen the draw, because I then sent it to the printers there and then, and it's like I hadn't seen the draw, and I think if I'd seen the draw, maybe would I've done something slightly differently, just because I think it's going to be a tough ask for us in the next round. But look, at the time, fans were leaving thinking, do you know what, we can have a good run at the Carabao Cup, and so that's why I went with that. But yeah, it's been quite a journey, quite an evolution. When I look back at some of those early issues and I compare it to how they are today, I think the big thing for us was when we went monthly, that really gave us the opportunity to just step back, think a bit outside of the box, and think, we're never short of ideas for content, because as I'm sure everyone watching this will appreciate, following West Ham is a real roller coaster every single month. There's always loads of different things to be talking about, and that really comes into the factors for me whenever I'm sitting down there to think about commissioning copy for every issue. It's, what are all the different things that have happened? What are people thinking about right now? And what are people potentially going to be discussing, in over the next few weeks, especially as we looked ahead to, we have a feature called Opposition Review. Well, I like it to be the game towards the back end of the month, towards the end of December or the end of November, just because, those comments are probably still going to hold true whether you read it on the 1st of November or the 21st of November. Whereas sometimes in other fanzines that I've read, they have Opposition View, which is all good, but by the time you're reading it, you've just watched the game happening. And that was the other thing for me, is, especially with Overland and Sea, I wouldn't read the issue until after the game. Well, as I just said, everyone's moaning about something. West Ham turn up and beat Man United, and suddenly on the way back, you're reading content criticising the squad when they've just put on a great performance. So that was always one thing that I had in mind.
It's one of the joys of creating content, and we get exactly the same on West Ham Network, where things change so quickly that something that is the best story, the best bit of content you've ever recorded or written, 20 minutes later, it's completely irrelevant, wrong. You even see it at the game. There was a guy in front of me just screaming continuously to bring Souček off. Why didn't we sub Souček off? The next second he scored. Like, you just can't sit still, I suppose. In the journalism world of football, it changes too quickly, doesn't it? So it must be a difficult balance, especially you've obviously changed things to meet the demand where people need it in print, but that also means you need to have that longer shelf life in there. So it's not easy. And we've tried to do the same as what you've done as well, in terms of creating a really balanced view by encouraging content from different journalists and people with different viewpoints. And sometimes it's quite hard, isn't it, to strike the balance of including all the different opinions and all the different relevant topics that you've got going on. How do you typically choose the topics that are going to be going into an edition? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of the different voices that go in. We have the opposition fans. I feel like we've got a good mix now of fans that have been going home and away, since day dot, and they've seen a lot. They've watched, West Ham in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They've seen it all. And then you've got a mixture of perhaps younger fans that, budding sports journalists that, want to be in that industry and want to be talking about West Ham. They're a West Ham fan. But they haven't, for them, Mark Noble is perhaps the big legend and hero for them, as opposed to Bobby Moore, Trevor Brooking, that kind of thing. So it's a real different mix. And we've also got people writing for us who are Hammers abroad, because actually I think they probably watch more West Ham games live than I do, because they're watching home and away. They got that routine every single week or every single game where they're watching all the West Ham games. So it's good to get their opinion too. And when it comes to sort of commissioning the copy, what I try and do now is every time there is a plethora of different news websites that publish West Ham news, and I think I always try every week just to keep across what are some of the issues that we're talking about right now and how we can take that on. Just say Jared Bowen signs his new contract. Well, actually, by the time we came out, it was best part of a few weeks after that news came out. So it wasn't a case of breaking that news. It was actually trying to map out, well, he's going to be with us for another 7 years. What could that look like? What could he go on to achieve? And it's asking those, just taking a step back and actually asking those kind of questions. Because obviously everyone would have been reading articles about him signing, what that means for us right now, but actually us thinking about what that could mean for him in the longer term is another thing. And then just trying to think, right now you're looking at run into Christmas, so that'll probably dominate quite a lot of our Christmas edition, our December edition, particularly thinking about memories of people's favorite Boxing Day games and stuff like that. And then of course you're looking ahead to the January transfer window. Who are we rumored to be looked at? So it's just trying to think for me, what's happened since we went to print. What have been the big news stories, and how can we cover that so that people reading it almost 6 weeks on, it's still relevant to them.
Absolutely. I guess one of the benefits as well is that by doing that, you can almost give a more in-depth look, which other ones that are just breaking the news don't necessarily look as much into the details and what the actual story means.
Yeah, and I think actually sometimes me and the designer have a lot of arguments over how much space we can give to certain. I want to have maximum words. It's great to have a page that looks nice and looks appealing for people to read to, especially with the pictures that we get. But equally, I don't really want to see big pictures, because that means that we've got fewer words. But equally, if you've just got a page full of words, it doesn't look as appealing. So it's finding that real balance, which is really hard. But for most articles that we've got, you're looking at the best part of 900 words on one particular issue. Whereas I know from other fanzines that I've read, it will be someone's opinion since they last wrote. So it'll be covering all of the games and all of the news articles. So you're looking at that all in one. And the one thing I'm always really keen to do, and I think I've just learnt this over time, is that, if you've got a piece about Aaron Cresswell, is he going to still be at the club? Is he going to make it to his testimonial? The one thing that, you need to weave in all the facts about, how long he's been at the club, when did he sign, how many goals he scored, how many caps for England he's all got. But it's real fine art to try and make that copy flow like it's someone's opinion. Like I always say, when you write an essay and you write the end of the essay, in conclusion, I think this, that's your intro. And then the rest of it is then your arguments for and against, because I always want the writers to state which side of the fence they sit on, but then go into what you might say and what I might say on opposing sides of it, without making it look like, I always say to the team, without it looking like a Wikipedia entry, because it's very easy to go in, Jared Bowen has signed a new deal, it could be great for us. And then going back to the beginning, it just needs to be woven in so effortlessly, because that's the thing, as you say, it needs to be that people are reading it and it's in depth, but they can read it on the 1st of November, the 7th of November, the 21st of November. It's still going to hold the same weight. Obviously, the longer it goes on, other factors might come into play, like, I don't know, Bowen might then be injured, and then that suddenly it changes it slightly, obviously. But yeah, you want to hope if all things go well and they all do what you expect them to do, that the content is still going to hold a weight.
It's a fine art to balance all of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just captivating content that people want to read month after month after month. And so you've been running Blown Bubbles for more than 11 years now. Like you said, you've got so many editions that have come out. So much has happened at West Ham over the time that this has been happening. What would you say your highlights have been in the 11 plus years that you have been running the magazine?
That's a real tough one to answer, actually, because every issue that we put out, I always say to the team, best issue we've done, because it's all new and it's all fresh, and everyone's working as hard as they can to make it as good as it can be. I always go, it's the best issue ever.
Yes.
It's yeah. I mean, actually, just in front of me now, when we got to the 100th issue, I got like these like big posters up with all like the front covers, just for like the 100th issue, so August 2012 to February 2020. And I sit in my office looking at that, and you look at all the different issues, and you're like, I mean, there's so many to choose from. I mean, we got an interview with Pele, which was just mind blowing, just because I'm a journalist, I know sports journalists, and one of them was like, I've got a chat with Pele at this thing. So I asked him a few West Ham questions and Bobby Moore questions. And I was like, yeah, why not? So he operated for us, and we got a chat with Pele for that. But I think it's been we started obviously when West Ham got promoted, under Allardyce, and we covered that era. Then you have kind of the era of Bilic and like leaving Upton Park. I definitely think that the farewell bowling issue that was probably one of our biggest sellers of all time.
Yes.
A fantastic keepsake, it really was, and it looks still good today. I think that's probably one of my favourites. And then, when we launched, I say launched, but when we relaunched again for the new stadium, we gave out like 10,000 issues, again leading up to that first game, and that was such a fantastic issue as well, because we managed to get kind of a little chat with Mark Noble, and it just was absolutely incredible to have all of that. It all came together really nicely. But then you then look at, I mean, the summer issue this just gone was brilliant, because it was all full of Prague memories, and I literally on the morning after the game, I was just tearing up in my head what that issue was going to be, and just completely changed it. If we'd lost, I think that a lot of the issue that we had already had in place would have stayed. But because we won, I wanted to hear from people like yourself who were there in Prague. I wanted to hear from people who were in the game. I wanted to hear from people who were watching from home around the world. I wanted people that went to the parade, because I didn't get back in time for the parade. So everyone would have had a different journey as part of that, and I wanted to sort of all put that together. So really, those are all kind of the issues but they are all historic moments. I mean, it has been since 2012. This 10, 11 years at the club there's been so many changes, and you think that from that as well, you've got the Pellegrini era, you've got the Moyes eras twice. Moyes is probably the manager that we've been covering the most. I'm just looking at it. Managers don't tend to make too much of our front covers, actually. Pellegrini's on there once, Bilic is on there once, because I always try and make sure that our star men all feature on the cover once, because I think it's always good. And I know that back in the day, some of the players would like to see it, or would like a post if they could see that they were on the front cover of it. So I think that's all kind of stuff that I think goes well, because I think fanzines definitely still have a place today. I know that the matchday program now has a lot more fan voices in it, but you're not going to have someone in there saying that David Moyes should get sacked. It's all with those claret and blue tinted glasses. So whilst I think they've made some fantastic strides in sort of just crossing that divide with fans, there's always a space, I think, for a fanzine, a printed publication, because as well, as you guys will be well aware, when it comes to the internet and all the different voices and opinions you hear on West Ham fans, for a West Ham fan going online now, unless you already get you should watch this network, or you should watch this YouTube channel, or you should go to this website to get your West Ham fix or information from. Trying to navigate yourself through that world, it's tough at times. And I think what I'm saying to people is, you might not necessarily always agree with the order in which I've done it, but there has been thought and process to it. It's not going to change. Here is the product that a team have sat around and worked out from front cover to back cover what are the most important issues covering West Ham, and staggered them in that way. Because the biggest complaint I get from the team is actually where I've positioned them in the issue. And it's really difficult, because you have to make a judgment call on how important the issue is as you go to print, and also there are some articles that are going to be perhaps a bit more towards the back of the book, but you can only not trust, but you know that there will be a certain writer that will nail it. So it's just that's finding the balance of all of that. And also sometimes, with perhaps some of the newer writers that come on, sometimes it may be the strength of the articles as well, and perhaps how much, sometimes when you're having to edit down copy, you're editing down from 2 pages to 1. And I kind of feel like, if you're going to have a really strong piece towards the front of the book, it needs to be hard hitting and strong and 2-page length,
Yeah, no, of course, all the different things to take into account. And you called supporting West Ham a roller coaster there, and there's no denying that that's what it is, because obviously you'll have the exact same. You're creating content for the highs, the lows, the difficult bits when things are going well, the hard bits when things are sort of changing. And sometimes I know it does make it more difficult to sort of come up with those content angles and work out exactly how you want to approach them and which angle, but putting together a balanced argument and making sure that it's interesting for those that are seeing it. And obviously I bumped into you in Prague, and it was one of the most exciting times, definitely for me, the most exciting time that I've had as a West Ham fan, being able to be there, but also share that moment with all the fans that it meant so much to, which is exactly what you also get to do when you are creating West Ham content. And like you touched on as well, the fact that you can talk to different fans about the different ways that they watch West Ham, enjoy West Ham, whether they're overseas watching every home and away game, whether they watch the odd game, or whether they're sort of like a fan that goes religiously to every home and away game. It's so incredible seeing the different ways, isn't it, that people like to, first of all, enjoy the content, but secondly, the way that they perceive the world of West Ham. There's times where I know that I'm probably quite a positive West Ham fan on the whole, but then you'll speak to someone, they've got a completely different opinion about the same game. But I think in a way that's kind of the beauty of football, isn't it? That we don't all see everything the same way. And when you can have those debates in a healthy way, I guess, rather than just attacking someone, it does make it a lot more fun to create that content, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of our writers are really skilled at actually being able to know, they'll see the posts on social media as well that they disagree with, on the same topic that they're writing about. So they're always tasked with, and they always do very well, just putting across both sides of it and actually really do honing in on what you might think and what I think. And obviously it will always be more weighted towards what they think, because they'll put a lot more stats and things in like that. But actually, stats are always, again, things that can be interpreted both ways too. So yeah, it is a challenge to make sure, because there are some writers that I can think about that whatever I give them, there'll always be a slightly negative spin on it. And there are others that, even if it's the worst of times, the doom and gloom of times, they're still going to be like, well, we could get a good result against Burnley and Palace, and then things will turn. And you think, oh my gosh, like we've just, lost these 5 games in a row. We're never going to beat Burnley and Palace, So, and it's always good. We've got George Paris, who does a column every month. Back in the day, we've had Julian Dix, who used to do one until he joined Slaven's coaching team, and then he had to give that up. And then, we had Phil Parks until very recently as well. So, and it's great to hear from kind of ex-Hammers. For me, one goal would be to try and get, a like of Jack Collison or someone like that, or Colton Cole, or someone like that who played in West Ham in more recent history, who perhaps have an even greater understanding of what it's like as a Premier League player, as well as being a West Ham player. But we've also got, ex-West Ham employee, Claret and Hugh, they both contribute to it every single month, because they see the importance and relevance of still being able to sort of read a fan publication like this, every single month. And I definitely think I made the right call going monthly, because, trying to come up, it wasn't so much the first game that was the issue, it'd be the second game, because you'd have to print it before the first game. So you'd be printing 2 issues at once. So it just became a lot more feature led, if that makes sense. So it'd be stuff that doesn't matter what the 2 results are. It's so you'd be looking at the writer's best away game or first home game and stuff like that. So it just changes things so much.
You get far more varied insights as well on different topics by having multiple games almost included in one edition. And bringing it back, obviously, to the awards. So the Football Supporters Association Awards, this is the 3rd time that you've been shortlisted, isn't it? So that's an incredible achievement. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I mean, just to be shortlisted every single, these 3 years. So I think it's 2015, 2021, and this year, I mean, it's always good. There used to be the FSF Awards. I think that's Football Supporters Federation Awards way back, and I think they've pretty much existed, or the Fanzine of the Year categories pretty much existed probably since like well, for us that we've been playing, so maybe 2014, 2013. So to be shortlisted the amount of times that we have over that that period is absolutely fantastic, and it's a testament to the hard work that all the team put into it. I always find it funny in that there have been some years, when we left the Berlin, we weren't shortlisted that year, but the 3 issues that I sent in, because there's 3 issues you can send in, were probably like 3 of my favorite issues. And then sometimes I think the 2021 issue, it was one of those where it was a case of, what 3 issues do I have left in my in my archive? I'll just send those, and you get shortlisted. And I always I'm never quite sure what it is, but I think this is one I had high hopes for, because obviously we had that January to before the Conference League final, we had the low of being in a relegation battle, can't see the light through the trees, to then having that massive high in the summer, and then then just focusing on the start of this season. So we had 3 really strong issues for that. And you look at whenever I'm in there, or when we've not made the shortlist, you look at the shortlist, and there are still some big hitters that are around in the fanzine world, and I'm just really hoping that this will be third time lucky. I've gone to the others full of hope that we're definitely going to win, because why wouldn't we win? And then just like watching West Ham play against Everton, you then leaving like really disappointed that we've just been absolutely we've not won. I'm always blown away by the different fanzines that exist as well, because it's tough enough being a fanzine of a Premier League club in terms of just getting order subscriptions and stuff like that, but one of the guys that we're up against is a Chester FC, and you're just like, it's so bizarre that they've got a fanzine as well. You thought it'd just be like their program, but it's absolutely great to see. And over the years, when I've been to the awards, whether we have or haven't been shortlisted, it's great to see that there are fanzines that are still going. Obviously, that we are fewer in number than the fanzines probably would have been even back 11 years ago. But it's great to be shortlisted again, and I'm still in 2 minds whether to go there with the hopes that we are going to win, to maybe prepare a few things I want to say, whether I just go there and think we're going to lose. I guess like when we play anyone like Man United or Liverpool, think we're going to lose, and then actually we end up winning, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, what am I going to say now?
It's what West Ham's done to you. It's caused long-term damage. Can't take anything for certain. So we know obviously how supportive the West Ham family are, and how much they love to support content and love to support those that put the content out there. So how can they support Blowing Bubbles with this, and how can they stay up to date as well moving forwards?
Yeah, so we're on all the social media platforms at West Ham Magazine, or you search Blowing Bubbles fanzine or magazine, it will come up too. But the website address is blowing-bubbles.co.uk, and there's you can buy an individual issue to get a flavour of what we're about, because I think a lot of people like to do that, like to see kind of before they commit to a subscription, they like to just see what one issue is like. So there's options to do that. You can obviously do hard copy, digital copy. And then on the same page, there are options to subscribe. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're in UK, Belgium, or Australia. There are different variations of subscriptions, whether it's hard copy or subscription. I always feel bad for the guys in Australia and America that we send the hard copies to, because the postage is so much. But they love it, and they love getting it. And it tends to come a week or so after the issue comes out. So again, it's ever so more important to make it relevant copy, as well, that they can. It's not going to be time dated, because then I do have a mind for those guys. And we have various subscriptions. So we've got the 5-issue, 11 issues, because we do 11 issues every season. We take July off. And then the 20-issue one is really popular for those guys that are like, this is a great publication. And we see more and more people like that, and are pledging for 20 issues, because it means that they don't get pestered by me once a year to say, can you renew your subscription, please?
Exactly. And it is a brilliant publication as well. I've obviously might be slightly biased because I know I've written the odd article in there, but I thoroughly enjoy reading every single episode and all the different viewpoints, like you were saying, because I think for me, that's what I find most interesting with content, is when everyone will have their own opinion, but being able to include so many different journalists, writers, fans, ex-players, like you said, it gives you that viewpoint where you can really have such a broad view of everything, and then almost make up your own opinions based on that as well. So you're doing a fantastic job, and I'm so happy as well to see that you've been shortlisted, because it is well deserved. So well done. And make sure you stay up to date with Blowing Bubbles, everyone. David, thank you so much for joining me as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. And for anybody watching as well, make sure you check out the video from earlier in the week where I spoke with David about everything that's going on about West Ham and all of our things that we have coming up, what we can expect from the international break, and how we're feeling going into that little break between games for West Ham. So as always, thank you so much for watching. David, thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, come on you Irons.